All right, let's hit it. What is up, my internet friends? Good evening. Alex Rashi here, aka Bear Blackspear, and we are back. And it's that time again. That's right. It's pro fight time. And today, I'm going to be doing another breakdown from Voin 2020. And I know all of my match reviews have been from Voin 2020, but like that tournament was sick. So like, you can't blame me. This one was actually suggested to me by a friend of mine. So shout out to Jen from Scalagrim. Thank you so much for the suggestion. I'm glad to do this review. I think it's a sick fight. Definitely one of the better ones from Voin 2020 in terms of style matchup and like pure sword fighting skills that we're going to see in the ring. So we're going to be watching and I apologize for my pronunciation. I may not be 100% on point, but I'm going to certainly do my best. So we're going to be watching Marina Golovina versus Anastasia Meshcheryakova. And Marina Golovina is going to be on the right side here in the red tabard with the white X on it. She's 31 years of age, coming in at 63 kilograms, 174 centimeters tall, fighting out of Russia. At this time, she was with the Tver team, but I believe she is now with Iskra. And her record, according to the WMFC site, although I don't know if it takes into account this fight or if it's up to date, is 6-4. And her well-known style is wrestling. And she is up against a total house in the form of Anastasia Mashariakova. She is the 2019 Battle of Nations Pro Fight champion. She's also 31 years of age, coming in slightly heavier at 67 kilograms, but slightly shorter at 165 centimeters. She's fighting out of Russia for Bern, and likewise, I'm not sure if her stats are up to date, but she's coming in at 2-2, with her well-known style being HMB. So I think this fight was one of, like I was saying before, this fight was, in terms of pure sword fighting, one of the better ones that I've seen come out of Voin 2020. And in terms of stylistic matchup, it's right up there with Levikov versus Kowal in terms of like the, pure wrestler versus the outbox striker. So we're going to run through it like we normally do. We'll run through it one time full, and then at the end we'll review certain key points and maybe discuss a couple of different things that are interesting and stand out from the match. So without much further ado, I'm going to throw up the rules in our traditional rule fashion, so you can sit there and pause if you need to and like absorb the ruly goodness. I'll give you a couple seconds, and now that you've done that, we can hit it. And be sure to not blink because this match is pretty high intensity. It's 2-minute rounds, 3 2-minute rounds, I believe. And here we go. So again, we have Golovina on the right in red and Mashariakova on the left, running out into the center, throwing a quick combination that's intercepted by Golovina, who comes in and returns a very nice left straight down the middle, followed by a flat snap to the leg. Another flat snap to the leg there, but swiftly returned by Mashariakova, who comes in with that nice offside flat snap combination, followed by another flat snap head-leg combination. Very nice. I really like those flat snap 3, flat snap 1. Combinations as both fighters are trading shots into the center of the ring as Golovina tries to pressure in, probably wants to cut off Mashariakova because she is very good in terms of striking, landing with the sword and maintaining her ranges. You see both fighters have excellent footwork, as Mashariakova is constantly threatening with the sword, using excellent circle and throw tactics. But Golovina just pressures all the way in, now even going as far as to use headbutts to try to continue pressure. Yeah, she's using head pressure in there, trading some knees and leg kicks. I don't know if those are super effective, as Mashariakova is still able to free her sword and throw, as Golovina is trying to maintain control, but she's not really able to rack up many points here, as this whole time Mashariakova is succeeding in liberating the sword and continuing to amass points. So definitely using a pressure tactic is going to be in her favor if she feels she's not as confident, which seems to be the case, as she's trying to rush in and maintain that pressure. But Mashariakova is so good at liberating her sword. She's making sure to not use her sword to wrestle as much as possible, which seems to be a slight error on the part of Golovina, who currently has her blade wrapped all the way around Meshcheryakova. So that means she's not currently able to amass points in the same way. And I'm not sure if those leg kicks that she's throwing are effective enough to count for points in this scenario. If I was counting, I wouldn't count those because I find them to be not effective. I don't know if just contact counts, but that's not effective. If she was trying to off balance and then sweep, like do a judo sweep or some kind of a trip, that might be a good strategy as we're coming to the end of that first round. 2-minute rounds seem quite quick, but these fighters are also very intense. So it was a very high action, high impact round. As we're coming out again, And now Mashariakova also jumps across and throws this incredible combination, beautiful Russian train combination, many of those shots landing and returning every shot she receives from Golovina, who's trying to throw counters and amass points at the same time, throwing 2 shots for every 1 shot that she's receiving. And Meshcheryakova, as we can see, is just very good at maintaining range, and she's using a lot of pivot footwork and circle footwork in order to make sure that she's always staying at that mid-range. Very nice jab to offside attempt there, and her game plan seems to be more oriented around flat snaps, and maybe jabs or slot shots, not so much around offsides, which makes sense when you're able to shield punch because you wouldn't need to go to that other side as much. As she's again able to dance around Golovina, but who suddenly makes a bit of a leap forward and successfully grapples her right up against the ropes. Again, coming in with those kicks to try to keep that clinch active. Mashariakova is trying to wrestle her sword arm free again, it seems, as Golovina putting that wrestling pedigree to the test. She's trying to set something up here, going around with that leg wrap, and successfully hooks that leg, something akin to a Kosotogaki, and just pulls her down into a side control position. She stepped over into a half guard. Now she's trying to maintain an active grapple, even going as far as to use headbutts again. And this speaks back to that fight, that Ilya Dragan versus Vitaly Gryzlov fight, where I made a similar comment about using headbutts to keep a grapple active or to make points in a situation where both of your limbs are blocked up. As she was both locked up on the chains there for a second, had to be liberated by the ref. As she jumps in here, going for that Uchimata attempt that failed due to Mashariakova's very nice footwork, very conservative, making sure she maintains range. And she seems like she's not in as much control, but I think she's just really good at going with the flow, as she seems to be able to liberate her sword arm enough to be able to score points. And like I said earlier, I don't know if these shots to the leg are enough to count for points, at least in terms of when compared to the shots that Mashariakova is landing with the sword. As we come to the end of round 2 there, ending round 2, coming into round 3. So we're already in the last round of the fight, so 2-minute rounds definitely feel different than 3-minute rounds, as Mashariakova runs out to the middle of the ring and just throws a beautiful combination, just establishing pressure very early again, like she did in that second round, which is key when you're against a pressure fighter. You have to make them respect you, otherwise they're just going to step in through your punches or through your sword strikes in this case. So making sure to always just be constantly throwing and dancing out of the way like this is excellent in terms of burning out a pressure fighter, as they always have to move in, and when they're moving in, you can't defend as effectively, you can't return as effectively. So you're you're losing until you're winning in that sense when you're like a grapple-oriented pressure fighter, because you have to come in and you have to suck up some shots before you get you get to your strong position, which arguably Golovina is fantastic at, because once she's very explosive and she's tall. So I would really like to see her trying to use more balance, like off balancing techniques that you would see in Muay Thai, for example, or trying to break posture with face pushes, or using her height to try to pull Mashariakova down, because she's not quite a bit taller, but 9 centimeters is still a noticeable difference. So both fighters are just displaying beautiful footwork skills as well, very smooth transitions, both between southpaw and orthodox, as well as the nice switch steps and pivots. Like it's the rounds are so short, it's so hard to get something in, because there's so much that's going on. You know, like Mashariakova is so good at maintaining her range through footwork, and Golovina is so good at pressuring in. But it seems like she's gassing out here, and Mashariakova is just like amping up the volume and just scoring points, which really puts on display like her pure sword fighting skills. And you can see that when it comes down to landing shots and setting up combinations, she's a lot more successful. And this isn't to say that Golovina is not skilled. In fact, she's excellent. The quality of her technique is very good. I think she's not only is now she's gassed because she's been putting a lot of effort into forward pressure that hasn't been yielding much success, but she's just coming in second in terms of sword fighting. As we're seeing the end of the round that's going to be called here. And it for sure should be in Mashariakova's favor. Yeah, absolutely. So that was definitely a solid win. I would argue a 3-round win, although a case could be made that first round was a draw. I would argue that the leg shots that we saw throughout the fight on the part of Golovina weren't effective enough in terms of the grand scheme of pointage to be able to overcome the amount of shots that Mashariakova was able to land. Now, in terms of the quality of the fight and the length of the fight and the conditioning of the athletes, like honestly, I don't understand why this isn't a 3-minute round. Like they could have gone for more. Meshcheryakova doesn't even look like she broke a sweat, and like if Golovina had more time to work, perhaps she would have been less frantic in certain portions of the grapple, and perhaps just kind of eased in to trying to establish position before doing something like trying to sweep or off balance. So all that being said, I mean, I'm not trying to be an armchair warrior or anything. Like I think these athletes are excellent. They're both high quality fighters, and there was so much on display in this 6 minutes. 6 minutes is like not a long time in terms of this kind of like this format of a fight. So it's like there were a lot of high level skills on display that I wasn't immediately able to touch on in the play-by-play, but for the footwork, just the footwork alone was phenomenal, and just the transitions you see, how smooth they are on their feet, how comfortable they are moving around the ring. High quality, well practiced footwork. So let's get into some review, and we'll start right at the beginning of the fight at 3 minutes and 55 seconds. So let's just jump all the way back to right about here. Perfect, I nailed it. And what's going to be really interesting is this opening exchange, right, is going to set up the whole fight. So they both look fantastic. And again, there's in this kind of a fight, it isn't a question of any fighter being bad. It's always a question of one fighter being better. And that's an important thing to take away, is that it isn't a question of being like, critical or telling somebody what they can do to get better. It's more from like a critical or an analytical perspective. You're looking at things from that distance, and you say, well, in this situation, what could a similar fighter do in a similar circumstance to get better, like more success, or could have been a different path towards success. And again, that's technical nuances. There's a million different paths, right? Everybody will see a different way forward. So there's no right answer. But certainly now that we can look at things in hindsight, there's ways to determine what could have been done better. So that being said, so this opening exchange is going to be setting up the whole fight. And they both look fantastic, but Mashariakova has the edge at range, and you're going to see that that's a clear advantage, right? Let's just watch it super quick. So she throws that opening flurry that's returned by Golovina, who's going to come with this, again, this beautiful straight to flat snap to the leg. I love those combinations. Tries to set it up again, but Mashariakova is really good with those flat snaps, coming in there with an offside flat snap combination, and then throwing another double flat snap combination. And as we can see, right from this point, at about 4 minutes and 15 seconds, Golovina is going to make the correct adjustment and transition to forward pressure. And now she's going to try to wrestle. So in that situation where we just saw her step out there, I don't know why she stepped out. I don't know. Sorry, I'm jumping back a bit too far. So I don't know. Once she makes this transition here to forward pressure at 4:15, boom, decides to jump in, explosive movement, goes forward. Has to establish again, boom, uses that shield and sword combination to pressure her way in, traps the sword. Now she's in, and I don't know why she let go of the sword and stepped out there, because she had the sword, her sword free, and Mashariakova's sword bound up. And she didn't really start swinging, either at the legs or at the head. She didn't really just try to create a scramble, which would have benefited her more than stepping out and putting herself back at Mashariakova's ideal range. So what we're going to see from this point is we're going to see that back and forth is going to replay itself throughout the fight, where Mashariakova at range is going to be successful pretty much 100% of the time, and Golovina is going to have to pressure her way through, and then while she's on the inside, she's not going to be really in a position to throw. And I'm going to chalk this up to very often wrestling primarily with the sword hand. And we're going to see she gets that sword bound up in positions where she's just not able to throw, or she's not able to do like the overhook domination strategy that we've seen in previous fights, where you get the shield arm over the head in the overhook, you press them up against the ropes, and you throw shots into the legs and do the short uppercuts into the faces as little fake outs and stuff to create tempo and feints and fakes from this position. And that's a strong position because you just lean on them and they gas just standing while you're beating on them, and it forces them to defend in awkward positions. So she doesn't seem to be getting to that situation, to that position, and seems to be opting for more of a clinch or some kind of a forward pressure leading into a takedown kind of a strategy. And she succeeds in the second round, which we'll be reviewing, but I'm going to go on forever. So let's keep going forward at 4:35, and we're going to see the first prolonged grapple, right? So just a couple seconds here. And she's going to, boom, that switch step, that pivot out. Again, beautiful, smooth footwork as she tries to use some very nice sword blocks, and then pressures her way in again and just explodes, runs right across the list. And here we go. So here we're in that first prolonged grapple, right, where she's going to be pushing Mashariakova up against the side of the list here. And we're going to see that she's going to try to use everything in her arsenal, a lot of diverse attacks in the form of punches, headbutts, knees, leg kicks. She's going to try to do a lot to establish position and advance position. Mashariakova, on the other hand, is really good at the Buherd version of the rope-a-dope, which is kind of where you hang out against the list or hang out against the rope and kind of just go with the flow and just make sure that you're always in a decent enough position defensively as well as offensively. Like, she's really good at being all around in that sense, which is something that I personally value from a fighter. I like fighters that are polyvalent and have a lot of different abilities and are comfortable in a wide variety of circumstances. The jack of all trades kind of fighter appeals to me a lot because of the intense mesh of martial arts and scenarios that we see in our sport. So let's keep going. So we're going to see more headbutts and head pressure here, which is very nice as both fighters trade some knees. And Meshcheryakova is doing the right thing here. So this is what I'm talking about. So we see that, I mean, in this position, I think Meshcheryakova successfully trapped Golovina's sword. So now she's throwing her own shots into the leg, and we'll see this pattern repeated throughout the fight as she's very good at freeing her sword, either through the use of teardrop returns or simply by snaking it out or keeping it from getting trapped in the first place. We'll often see her pull it up behind her head in those circumstances, or she'll use her arm to establish a crossface or to post, and that's a really good way to keep your sword from getting trapped because your sword goes, you know, up in the air and your hand is in their face, right? So it's just like, you know what I'm saying? So, and I think that this position, as we're seeing, like I was saying, Golovina is using a bunch of different diverse strikes to try to grind an advanced position. So we see now she's in this position where her sword is behind Mashariakova's head. So now she's not in a position to throw with the sword, and she's not going to be able to score as effectively with the shield in these very close-up positions. And like I said, I'm not sure the leg shots, the leg kicks are counting. I could be wrong. I don't have access to the scorecard. It's just, in my view, they're not counting, or at least they're not enough of them are counting. Certainly because Mashariakova wins the fight. So I'm definitely not off on that in terms of point scoring. Yeah, like I said, so Golovina is using both of her hands to grapple, and that means that she has no hands free to score points with. So that's a very important nuance. Yeah, so okay, cool. That was that point. So let's move forward into the second round. We're at 6-10. So 6-10 is the beginning of the round here, and we're going to see that Mashariakova is just going to jump across the list. We'll just start from here. So we're going to see that the moment the round starts, she's going to jump like right across the list and establish center pressure, and then just throw this beautiful Russian train opening blitz, many shots in this combination land. And this is like huge in terms of establishing pressure and respect in a fight, and respect is important. They got to know that they're going to get punished for stepping on you. And right in that moment, Mashariakova says, "You can't fuck with me. You can't fuck with me because not only am I here to fight and I know exactly how to take you apart, but I can do it whenever I want," right? And in that moment, she was able to land the majority of her shots as she was using the sword to bind and then coming in with the shield punch. And like I think every one of those shield punches landed. And this is an important strategy in terms of ring generalship, is making sure that the pressure fighter feels the threat, because otherwise you're going to be, because when they move forward you have to move side to side or move back, right? So you can't run forever from a pressure fighter. As we see, I always cite in these moments, Khabib. If Khabib wants you, Khabib's going to grab you, and it's the same with any wrestler. If a wrestler is willing to take a punch and they want to grapple you, they're going to grapple you no matter how much you run. It's just a question of time. So establishing respect is important, because otherwise they're just going to tank all your stuff and come in. So we're going to look at this opening blitz again. And it happens so fast. All of these shots are landing. We see the helmet getting moved by all of those shield punches, and she dances out with that nice little switch step too, throwing combinations the whole time. In that opening blitz, she won the round. She won the round because the pattern of grapple and swing is going to repeat itself, right? So we're going to go through it again. We'll keep going through. here is we're going to see that every time they stay at range, Mashariakova is pretty much free to score points whenever she wants due to just being better at pure sword fighting. And again, this isn't to say that Golovina is bad. A lot of the shots she set up are excellent, both with sword and shield punches, and her footwork is incredible. But I mean, there's no comparison in terms of the edge that Meshcheryakova pulls out. She's just able to score whenever she wants with that beautiful sword block right there as well, and just throwing shots down the middle as well. Like, so when in this moment here, we see again that situation has replicated itself, where now Golovina is wrestling with both of her arms. So this isn't obviously a bad thing. It's just that in having nothing to score with, she's not able to rack up as many points. And now in this round, there's a huge disparity. Already in the opening seconds of the round, there's a huge disparity in terms of points. So her strategy should be something which allows her to score those points. And yes, she does go forward in a few seconds here. She does go on to successfully nail a takedown, and seeing the ease with which she nailed this takedown and the flexibility of her legs and the control she had while on the ground, I was surprised that she didn't go for that kind of a maneuver earlier, because she goes for her takedown, she gets it. I mean, it's unfortunate that her tempo is interrupted by being caught on the ropes, having to be free. She's freed by the ref, but in that moment, like, the whole, you lose so much momentum in terms of the grapple, like in terms of where you can go and like what your next setup is, because now suddenly you're stuck and they've adjusted to being on the ground in that 1 second. So all your opening, your surprise factor is gone, and potential damage is already in the past, so it's not something you can easily capitalize on. As we could see, is Mashariakova already in that position set up a crossface and was establishing distance and making sure they didn't have chest contact or anything like that. And like, I would like to see her get her legs up to prevent Golovina from stepping over into half guard. Like, arguably she could have probably stepped all the way over into mount, or like I mean, if you just look at this position, she just has to kind of be like whoop, and she could kind of push down on the chest or the abdomen with the shield. So you push down with the shield and then you step over, or you push down, you hold down the leg with your shield and you step over, is another good way to kind of jits up your Buhurt ground game. As we'll see here, she just kind of opts to throw the shield into the midsection. Maybe she does try to step actually, and she gets blocked. Let's just jump back here. So she pushes down into, yeah, she does get blocked, okay, but she doesn't really try to step over. But Mashariakova has a very nice half guard as well, and she successfully pulls Golovina in. So now Golovina's trapped. Both sword and shield are trapped in there, and she's not really able to posture up to be able to throw or to advance her position. So what does she do in this circumstance, knowing that the grapple's going to be broken soon? Headbutts. And it's like, I know in one of my earlier videos, as I'm going to take a drink, and I know I got some criticism because I said in one of my earlier videos that headbutts can be an interesting way to keep a grapple active, considering that our sport is one where you'll be separated from an inactive clinch, or if you're in a position like this, after 7 seconds you get separated, you can't make any points. So tactically, it's of sound mind, considering as well that we have helmets. So I mean, we're at substantially less risk from the same kind of trauma that you would see in other combat sports. But that being said, headbutts are illegal in combat sports for a reason, because they're devastatingly effective. If you look at Lethwei, for example, which is the Muay Thai that comes out of Myanmar, headbutts are legal in that game, and they make up a dominant part of that sport. In terms of the ability to land knockouts. If you look up Lethwei knockouts, you'll see people headbutting each other from across the ring, and I'm completely serious when you say that. So it's not like, in terms, it's a sound judgment in the moment. Would I say, like, is headbutts your strategy? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, you're out of position, and the only thing you can do is bop them in order to get some points. Like, you should bop them to get some points. So I don't think that that's tactically unsound as they get separated here, right? And all of that work is huge gas. And Mashariakova is just like, cool, I'm going to stand and throw, and we see that replicated throughout the fight. And it's unfortunate, now that when you look at that whole takedown ground fight game, it's like, it's really unfortunate that she was stuck on the ropes there. because that was her chance to win round 2 because of the amount of points that you can get in that position. Like, if she had been able to like land the takedown and then immediately step over into mount and then start doing something from that position, or if she had been able to get the takedown and then return to a standing position quickly, for example, and then dominate from the top that way and just rack up a bunch of points, that could have been enough to make up the disparity, or at least bring it close. You know, it's really unfortunate, and it's like the dynamics of Ring and just List in general are always something that we should keep an eye on in terms of enabling fighters in the sport and not inhibiting their performance. So let's move on. So we'll move on to round 3, and I want to jump in at 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Oh man, I nailed it perfect. Did you guys see that in one click? I'm a master. Okay, let's do this. Boom, round 3 is going to start, and I believe it starts much in the same way as round 2, with another blitz from Meshcheryakova, and again using that nice footwork to maintain her range. And she's very good at identifying and understanding distance. Distance management is key in combat sports, especially where you have weapons that could potentially have different ranges and weights and stuff. Your equipment can be different. It's very, very important to be able to establish your range and their range. As we see, she's just continuing to blitz Golovina down, who seems to be a little gassed, and understandably so, because all of the grappling that's hard, man. Especially if you're not getting anything out of it, that's brutal. And Mashariakova is a very fine athlete, so it's not like it's an easy fight. I mean, clearly she's very, very strong and has excellent core strength. As we see, they're moving forward, and that grapple situation is continuing, where Golovina is unable to throw properly. Mashariakova still seems fresh to me, as she's just dancing. She's just dancing like a butterfly and stinging like a bee. Oh, there's still very nice footwork from Golovina, but let's just take a second, hold on, and take a second at that really sick sword block. Right in this position, the predictive sword block with the return flat snap. Nice. I see that. See, it's that's the kind of thing that you only get. That kind of setup, understanding of the dynamics, what the next shot is going to be. That's something you get from hundreds of hours of Sword and Shield. She's for sure got Sword and Shield. I don't know, if she doesn't, okay, I don't know her. I don't know her training. But if she doesn't, she has incredible, unbelievable natural talent for Sword and Shield, and should absolutely be doing it. But I wouldn't be surprised if I find out that, after I post this video, I find out that she's a very high tier Sword and Shield competitor, that she's won medals in those categories. She has very, very clear, pure, gorgeous Sword and Shield. And me, I'm a Sword and Shield fanatic. It's my greatest passion in the sport. In all of sword fighting, anything, Sword and Shield has always been my thing. I love it so much. And seeing beautiful, technical, skillful sword fighting is rare, even in our sport, even among the highest level athletes. So it's the moment I see it, I'm bam, and I stick on it right away. And it's the transitions are sick, right? And it's the setups are nice, and the prediction, you see she has the hundreds of hours that you need to just know that when you step like this, you could put your sword there already, because you know that they're going to turn around and they're going to throw like this. You only get that from so much training. It shows, her pedigree as a pro fight champion shows because of moments like that. And it's Golovina, to my understanding, although I'm not able to find any other examples of her performance at this time, to my understanding, she is also a phenomenal athlete. I believe they're second and third in the WMFC rankings. I believe Meshcheryakova is second and Golovina is third. I mean, you know what? I think, can I check that? Check that. Check that right now. I'm checking that right now. Yeah, Anastasia Mashariakova is labeled as being in second place, and Marina Golovina is stated as being in third place. And see, this is where I get their statistics from. So again, I don't know if this is up to date or not, but this is the only resource I have access to at the moment. So let's move on. Yeah, I wanted to go. That was it actually. That was it. Let's just run out the rest of this fight because honestly, this was one of the better fights that I saw in terms of stylistic matchup and just like I said earlier, like pure sword and shield. Both fighters show very very high tier sword and shield skills. You know, it's unfortunate that the match is only 2 minutes long. I would have preferred to see 3 minute long matches, not only because I believe the athletes can do it, but because I believe it would have given Golovina strategically more of an opportunity to work in those grapple situations. Because when you have like you know when you have a minute less in terms of establishing pressure, when you're a pressure fighter and grappling, that could be pretty tough. So I would have definitely liked to see, at least in the future, I would like to see them get that 3 minute matches. That would be awesome. And yeah, so that was the end of the fight. So that was it. And like I said, so I want to give a shout out to Jen, my friend from Scalagram, once again. Thank you so much for suggesting this fight. I really liked it. I think both athletes are just absolutely dominant in the sport. They're top tier competitors. It wasn't Golovina's match this time, but I would definitely like to see more from her in the future. I wouldn't be surprised to see her dominate. I mean, clearly, if she has a 6-4 record, like she wins more than she loses. She just met her match in Anastasia Meshcheryakova today. So yeah, so thank you very much. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitch, and I hope you all enjoyed the commentary. Leave a comment. Feel free to contact me on Facebook as well if you want to make any suggestions for matches. And I hope you all had a great day. Thank you very much, and peace out.